I've been struggling with the idea of continuing or not. I've decided that I'm not going to continue playing the game. And the reason being, I don't like the fact that they changed the game so drastically from a gameplay perspective. I can deal with it if it's just story, but it is much more than story-based changes. I do want to apologize for anybody who wants to see more of this, but I also want to explain my reasoning behind it. I like having challenges in the games that I play. And for me, when I see a challenge and I see something that I like to learn the language of the game or whatever form of media it is that, I'm partaking in. I like learning the language of the combat system, meeting the challenge as it is. The feeling that I have with patch 1.5, as changes as little as it may seem, people may be like, oh, the healing changes, that doesn't affect all that much. The get up changes, it's not that big of a change. I see it differently. And it is also the hit stun on the enemies that is also a big change. And I've tested it out. It's not like I'm just making this decision blindly. I've tested out the changes based on areas that I have just beaten or went through. And I didn't feel as satisfied with it. I get the feeling of, picture this. Imagine having an opponent and you two are going back and forth in a very competitive battle, only for the opponent to get substituted out right at the climax or someone else. Doesn't matter if the opponent that gets substituted in is weaker or stronger. The fact is that you started a battle against someone and then that someone is no longer the person you're battling. There's some sort of dishonor in that, that I can't explain. It makes me not want to care. It's the same thing as reading a book, investing into a book, and then having the main character of the book that you're reading, the novel that you're reading, get substituted out like a third way through the book. And there's no real explanation why. Just from a competitive point of view, that's how I feel like. I'm Vegeta. The game is Goku. Goku gets substituted for Krillin or Piccolo, or it doesn't matter who. It's not going to sit right. It doesn't matter. The fact is that my experience was altered and it interfered with my fight. That is the main reason why I don't wish to continue. The change was too drastic for me to overlook. I try to level my way through it after a couple of days and be like, I can just, keep playing anyways. I can just do this just because. Maybe it's not that bad. I can't do it. And I feel like on top of that, from a competitive standpoint, on top of that, I feel like I got robbed. I feel like I have gotten robbed of both my experience and my money. That's how I feel. This is personally how I feel about it. Because the reason why I bought the game is not the same game that I have right now. The silly thing about it is it doesn't feel like any of these changes were necessary. And especially not as drastically as it was done. But, to each their own. Some people like the change. I'm not telling you not to like it or not to play it. I'm just saying that for me, it really took the wind out of my sails. And I'm sure the game is still going to be, challenging to some degree, and I'm sure, but the fact is it's not the same game that I was, learning. It's not the same game that I was learning, and so I'm just not motivated to continue. And to also help you understand this, I was like this with Soul Calibur as well. I'm like this with any game. If any game that I invest in changes so drastically that I feel like it's taking away from me more than it is giving me through a patch, through an update, it's not going to sit well. Fighting games, that is the worst thing about modern fighting games. Soul Calibur 6, Taki, she got a possession council in like one of the first patches of the game, you know, and it was so fun to do. It wasn't intentional, but it was so fun to do. And Taki wasn't that good of a character. She kind of sucked in Soul Calibur 6, and this technique was so difficult to do, so difficult to execute, especially in the heat of the moment. But it gave her some juice that was fun, and it was also pretty good, but it was so situational. And I struggled time after time after time. So many people struggled to learn it, to master it, not just the possession council, but then the perfect possession council, which was even stricter and even more difficult to do. Learned it, mastered it, created my own ethos for how to do it, and then they patch it out of the game. Gets patched out of the game. And she wasn't even strong even with it. Even with the possession council, she wasn't strong, right? She was not top tier. She was probably somewhere in the middle of mid tier, maybe the bottom of mid tier. She was still a struggle character. So the fact that they looked at Taki and said, you know what, she doesn't deserve that, and they took it out the game, more than it just affecting her on a tier list, it affected the fun of playing the game, because it was such a structured game. They wanted you to play it in such a constructed way. Follow the path of how to get these lethal blows, or whatever it was called. I forget what it was called. The more you try to deviate away from that, the more they patched the game and said, this was not the way we wanted it. This was not the way we intended for it to be. And so we, made some changes to, blah, 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 blah. They took away the fun parts of Soul Calibur 6 so much, and they just wanted to streamline you into one play style that the developers wanted you to go into. Didn't make me want to play the game anymore. So when you put so much time into trying to learn something, to try to learn the language of something, and for it to get taken away like that, it's not a good feeling as a player. Same thing with Stellar Blade. When they took out the custom combo chaining routes between heavy and lights, and they patched it out of the game at launch of the game, it's not a good feeling. It made the game dull, and there was nothing that could replace it. I feel like Wuchang is not as severe as that, it didn't take away any tech, necessarily, but it just made a lot of the tech irrelevant for a much easier layer 1 methods. Just mash the controller to get the job done, right? They took away the neutral in the game. They took away the need to respect your opponent in the game. There's no longer a need to respect your opponent. There's no longer a need to be hesitant upon approach, because everything that you do staggers the opponent now. Light attacks staggers the opponent. You just go in light, and the opponent just gets staggered, stun locked. Not all opponents, it varies greatly, but the fact of the matter is that they made the game more layer 1 and less of a need to go any further than that. And a lot of the changes were just layer 1 to make the layers beneath more irrelevant. So layer 1 seems to be no downsides to doing anymore, and all the layers that you have to learn how to do, or that may be a bit more execution based, a bit more studious, tactful, became even more irrelevant, because there's no point in doing them when you could just mash to get up, when you could just mash to heal, when you could just do this, do that, when it's all surface level. That's kind of why I'm not that interested anymore. But it's still a fun game, I'm pretty sure. And if it launched like it is right now, I would not be complaining. I wouldn't be complaining, because they wouldn't have taken away an experience that I liked. But I can't escape the feeling that they did take away that experience. I do feel like I got robbed, and I can't escape that. So maybe I'll come back to that months later, maybe years later, maybe if they patch the game further and to a point where I like it, or where I forget the way I'm feeling currently, then I'll probably come back to it, give it a test drive. You know, maybe bygones will be bygones. But for right now, I'm not feeling it. And that's just as plain and simple as I can give it to you. I can't fake the funk. I do think it's a good game, but I think it's a very confused game. Personally, despite the fact that I really like the game, this has been the worst launch of a game that I've been interested in that I've ever seen. Plain and simple. This has been the worst launch of any game that I have been interested in, that I have witnessed ever. Bad performance launch, bad PC launch, mishandled the deluxe editions, the pre-order add-ons, take away the deluxe editions from people who did order the deluxe, give people who didn't get the deluxe, more performance issues, more patches, 5 however many patches for less. We're not even a month into the game yet. We have had several different patches, and we still have performance issues even now. And you know, a lot of stuff I have not talked about, discussed in this video, but the patch 1.5 also messed up the movement. It's not as smooth anymore, and it just feels like it's a very the game feels like the people who made the game, who designed the gameplay, what I can't escape the feeling is it feels like the people who designed the gameplay are not the people who are patching the game. I can't escape that feeling. But when they figure it out, you know, maybe I'll be back. The footage I've collected, I'm unsure what to do with it. It's at least like 6 hours of footage, at least. A lot of funny moments, a lot of cool moments, a lot of bosses that I beat. Stuck with the spirit throughout the whole thing, you know how I do. You know, I like to, you know, create my own inner challenges and stick to melee. You know how I do. That's just how I do it. So you know, that's what I did. And, you know, so I got to Bo the Sorcerer. I got to the Tiger. I got to the, you know, the Tiger's where I left off. And then that's when I just stopped. But anyways, let me know what y'all think. How are you feeling about the patch, about the game? And what are you feeling? And would you like for me to still upload the footage that I've collected, like as if I were still doing the playthrough, like uploading it like 30 to an hour, minutes at a time? Or should I just bundle it up into like a highlight reel and then call it a day, so we miss out on a lot of the dungeon exploring, a lot of the boss retries and whatnot, and we just bundle it all into a short 30-minute package speed run? Or should I just upload the whole thing, you know, like hours per dungeon, hour per boss, hour per dungeon, hour per boss, something like that? Let me know. What would y'all like? But yep, I just want to give y'all a heads up. And I will be back with a new game to play, which is, I'm not sure what I should play. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Catch y'all on the flip side. Peace, much love, and stay cool.